Welcome to the Arlington Street Church podcast. Founded in 1729, Arlington Street continues today as a gathering place for progressive people of faith in the greater Boston area and beyond. We are located at the corner of Arlington and Boylston Streets, across from the Public Garden in Boston, Massachusetts. Please visit ascboston.org for more information about this historic Unitarian Universalist congregation. Arlington Street Church, gathered in love and service for justice and peace.
This coming Thursday, awfully early in the morning, I will catch an Air Canada flight out of Logan Airport headed from Boston to Toronto. Then, in Toronto, I will catch a connecting flight to Vancouver, where I will land just after 10:30 a.m. Pacific time, ahead of the opening of an event rather cryptically called the 2025 Gathering. It is a global gathering co-hosted by two North American organizations, the Canadian Company of Pilgrims and the American Pilgrims on the Camino. Nearly everyone in attendance will have walked or will soon walk one of the lengthy pilgrimage routes leading to the Spanish city of Santiago de Compostela, which last year welcomed a record 500,000 arrivals at its pilgrim reception office. Only, what has Vancouver to do with Santiago? That's something I'm still wondering myself, since I'm slated to give a closing plenary talk on pilgrimage at this global gathering next Sunday. I myself am a relatively new pilgrim. In the fall of 2023, a dear friend of mine and I decided that we would walk the Camino Português from Rio Minho, dividing Portugal from Spain. On our way to Santiago, we met people walking from more distant points in Porto or Lisbon and made friends along the way, Americans and Canadians and a few Europeans too. My friend and I met several wonderful people, but I was always taken aback when one of them would ask me, "Is this your first Camino?" "Well," I would usually reply, "I'm assuming it's my one and only Camino." 20 years before my friend and I walked from the border of Portugal with Spain, Joyce Rupp and her close friends started their Camino at the border of France with Spain. She chronicled their journey to Santiago in her 2005 book titled Walk in a Relaxed Manner, Life Lessons from the Camino. Sister Joyce is a Catholic nun living in Des Moines, a longtime hospice volunteer and acclaimed spiritual writer. She began her Camino shortly after she turned 60 and walked more than 500 miles with her friend Tom, a retired Catholic priest. Interestingly, both of them chose to travel incognito, not disclosing their religious vocations to their fellow pilgrims. The two of them walked for 37 days, and from their time together, Sister Joyce distilled 25 life lessons to remember. Among those lessons are these: go prepared. Live in the now. Be attentive to your body. Acknowledge the kindness of strangers. Don't let difficulties deter you. Embrace beauty. Return a positive for a negative. Look for unannounced angels. Deal with disappointments. Savor solitude. Have a sense of humor. Trust in the divine companion. Let yourself be humbled by weakness. Enjoy friendships. Travel lightly. Enter into the hum of humanity. And finally, pause to reflect. While she did pause to reflect on the Camino, the pace that Sister Joyce and her friend kept across Spain meant that the time she was better able to reflect on the experience was after it ended. Sister Joyce lamented the way she and her friend had begun the Camino with complete disregard for that explicit directive, the title of her book, in fact, to walk in a relaxed manner. Our unspoken motto became push onward, push forward, push, 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 rush, rush, rush. We soon discovered that the rushing and the pushing cause us to lose our enjoyment of the walk itself. We left home in order to experience the freedom of getting away from it all, she declared, but we simply took the tensions with us in new forms. We continued to strain and groan under the desires and expectations of achievement and accomplishment, goals which our culture thrives on and implants in us almost from birth. Entering a foreign territory, being strangers in a strange land, let Joyce and Tom experiment with new and different ways of being in the world and with one another. Imagine walking on a path where millions of feet from other lands and cultures have previously walked, feet that have trod hundreds of miles to reach a sacred site, Sister Joyce wrote. Think of what it is like to have that same path and those same stones beneath your feet as you, too, walk for many weeks to reach the same destination. It is a journey filled with spiritual connectedness and communal resonance. When people experience that sort of connection and resonance, traveling across hundreds of miles with scores of people over several weeks, they are understandably reluctant to depart from that. The dominant culture that Sister Joyce left behind in America was the very same one that greeted her upon her return. Overachievement, competition, comparison, addiction to work and duty, unreal expectations of needing to do more, the obsessive pursuit of having more. All these fall on us as heavy cultural and self-imposed burdens, Sister Joyce observes. When these attitudes and messages press in on us, they cause us to lose our harmony and self-satisfaction. There is far too much hurry and worry in most lives, she concludes. While she initially resented having to set aside so many hours for walking in preparation for her lengthy pilgrimage, she was remarkably eager to stick to a serious walking schedule after her return from the Camino. She was hoping that her friend Tom would choose to keep a similar schedule, but then, suddenly and unexpectedly, a few months after their return, Tom died. People often say that pilgrimage is a metaphor for life. I will say that in my experience, the Camino can certainly serve as a powerful reminder that each of us is only passing through this world for a little while. Any pilgrimage provides us mortals with important training ground. It poses a few simple questions to us. How will we move through our days? How well will we companion those we meet along the way? What pace will we set for ourselves? And what pace will we continue to keep? How we respond to these questions matters a great deal in the long run. These days, the practice of pilgrimage is experiencing a global resurgence. Santiago continues to register record numbers of arrivals at its cathedral, more each year than the year prior. But all its pilgrims are not Catholic or even Christian. Religious traditions around the world have encouraged the spiritual practice of pilgrimage for millennia now. Jews travel to the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem, Hindus to the banks of the Ganges River, Muslims to Mecca, Buddhists to the 88 temples on Shikoku. Today, more secular seekers are embracing the wisdom of spiritual travel. They embrace it with heartfelt intention and a willingness both to encounter the sacred and reverence the countenance of their fellow sojourners. Perhaps you or someone close to you is in the process of planning a pilgrimage now, if not to these celebrated and established sites, then to another special place that beckons to your soul. If so, I wish you, as the Spanish would say, buen camino. I hope you travel a good way, a way abundant with blessing. The closer my friend and I got to Santiago, honestly, the more we wished it was further away. We were both a little the worse for wear between the knee and ankle braces we sported and the blisters we bandaged each morning. But we also had the sense that we could keep going and should. By the time we were nearing the end of our Camino, each of us had been asked a number of times by various caminantes if this was our first Camino. She ceased to be surprised by the question. I never did. Exactly how many of these am I supposed to do? I began replying. As soon as we arrived in Santiago with our backpacks, the pilgrims who had gotten there ahead of us began shouting their congratulations to us from the sidewalk across the street, and both of us considered these premature. What we really wanted were clear directions to the cathedral so we could celebrate in the plaza with everyone else basking in the afternoon sun, and then collect our compostelas from the pilgrims' reception office before it closed. Thankfully, the line at the office was fairly short and moved pretty quickly, so I was at the counter in no time, ready with my stamped and signed pilgrim's passport, proving I had walked the requisite miles. Placing the cathedral seal over my certificate of distance traveled, the volunteer there asked me, "So, is this your first Camino?" By that point, there was no rhetorical flourish left in my response. "Yes," I said simply, "it is my first Camino." Handing me back my documents, he smiled and told me, "It won't be your last." Perhaps it was the power of his suggestion, but his prediction proved correct. Last March, I traveled to San Antonio for the 2024 annual gathering of the American Pilgrims on the Camino. I arrived in the city a couple of days early so I could spend 2 days walking 20 miles along the trail that connected 4 historic missions with the cathedral downtown in a route now known as El Camino de San Antonio. The sun and the heat there were reminiscent of Spain, as was some of the local architecture and several church interiors. I carried a similar kind of passport and continued to get it stamped at certain way stations along the San Antonio River, so that when I arrived at the Pilgrims reception office in the city, I was yet again eligible for another certificate of distance traveled. At the actual gathering of the American Pilgrims in Texas, I met seasoned pilgrims who themselves had walked 3, 6, 8, or 11 Caminos or more. Some kept returning to the well-known Camino Frances, that celebrated route that Sister Joyce and her friend Tom walked. Others alternated between that and the Camino Portugués and the Camino Inglés and the Camino Privatimo and the Camino del Norte and so on, taking a different route each time. Some were hoping to travel all those routes someday. One caminante at the gathering served as a Camino guide for small groups of military veterans with post-traumatic stress and spoke at length eloquently of the curative power that pilgrimage held for so many of them over the years. Others were involved in developing shorter pilgrimage routes, similar to the Camino de San Antonio, in states like Wisconsin and Massachusetts, so that individuals who found international travel prohibitive could become pilgrims closer to home over a week or a weekend and have viable transport options if their mobility was limited somehow. On both the Camino Português and the Camino de San Antonio, I did not travel incognito as Sister Joyce did. If anyone asked what I did, I would tell them that I was a community minister and spiritual director. The thing that impressed me most about the 2024 gathering, though, is that over the 4 days we were together in Texas, here in America, in late-stage capitalism, not a single person asked me what I did for a living. The curiosity that people brought there was very specific. They usually wanted to know what Camino you had walked, and when, and why, and which was your next, and what it had taught you about your life. To an extent I never experienced before, we were living in an alternative mode, a parallel reality that did not privilege the things Sister Joyce complained of, namely overachievement, competition, comparison, addiction to work and duty, unreal expectations of needing to do more. All those heavy cultural and self-imposed burdens she described us Americans toting routinely. The once and future pilgrims at this gathering seemed to have no room for those in the backpacks they carried. If you don't either, you may already be a pilgrim yourself. Your journey may well have begun. Over the past couple of years, I've gotten very involved in the American Pilgrims, a nonprofit organization that has a mission to inspire all who seek the spirit of the Camino to connect with the global community of pilgrims, as it says. Our Boston chapter is quite active if you ever want to join us. Under its aegis, I lead training walks every spring and fall. I also coordinate our Camino book club in Zoom, and I've welcomed Canadian pilgrims as well as others across the US into discussions of books like the one written by Sister Joyce. I participate in ceremonies that commission people preparing for, yes, their first Camino, which is of course a momentous undertaking. Some of our members plan to go in a couple of months or weeks. Some only hope to be able to go someday in the distant future, God willing. Yet all of them have already begun their sojourn. In my estimation, all of them count as pilgrims. As I understand it, the Camino is not a course to be completed. It is instead a curriculum we need to learn by heart. And the closest thing that American pilgrims have to a covenant, they claim that this is the spirit of the Camino, to live in the moment, to welcome each day with its pleasures and its challenges, to make others feel welcome, to share generously, to feel the spirit of those who have gone before us, to imagine those who will follow after us, and to appreciate all those who walk alongside us today. These various practices belong in spiritual community because they can only be fully developed in spiritual community. People become pilgrims not by logging miles or arriving at a certain destination. They become pilgrims by consenting to a radical reorientation of their lives around certain key spiritual realities. After I returned to Boston from Santiago, I continued to walk regularly enough that I would be ready for my next Camino on short notice, if need be. Originally, I had in my mind that I would return to Santiago last fall. And when that didn't happen, I put it in my mind to do so this spring. But now I can see that that will not happen either. All indicators point to me falling far behind schedule, but frankly, I cannot bring myself much to care. I agree with Sister Joyce that there is far too much hurry and worry in our lives these days, and so I refuse to carry either. The man at the counter of the Pilgrims reception office might have been right about the Camino Português not being the last one I walk. But I understand now that the certificate of distance traveled, which he handed me, was issued in error. My pilgrimage began in Boston well before I ever set foot in Spain, when I joined with the American Pilgrims very near to home. It continued through Texas, an interesting detour, when I traveled the lesser-known Camino de San Antonio with the locals there. And it will be extended later this week as I travel some 2,500 miles to Vancouver to attend this 2025 gathering of Canadian and American pilgrims. Truthfully, I could catch a flight on Iberia Airlines to Madrid and then another to Santiago, and it would take me only a couple of hours more than this trip I have planned on Thursday. But the cathedral and the Compostelas can wait. I go where I need to go to fall in with the pilgrims who remain sincere in their commitments. They understand that pilgrimages are at heart spiritual practices. They are not endurance competitions, nor are they trips to tourist destinations. It matters far less the miles we are willing to log on them than the lessons we are willing to let them teach us and our friends about how we want to live. We can be pilgrims anywhere and everywhere. May the quality of each of our lives be our benediction and a blessing to all we touch. Those who take hold of life, may you find life returning your embrace. Those who sense God, may you find God always with you. Those who seek a right path, may that way appear ahead. Step out in faith and go in peace, remembering that you are well loved and we are all one. So it is, so may it always be. Amen.
Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. For your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. Your divine, my divine. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. For your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. Your divine, my divine.
Please visit ascboston.org for more information about this historic Unitarian Universalist congregation. Arlington Street Church, gathered in love and service for justice and peace.